At She Can, we tell women stories. We interview women from all walks of life and all over the world to hear their stories because it's easier to be what we can see. And I'm really excited to talk to Michelle Minnikin today. Michelle, you are a great person for She Can to interview. You're a psychologist, you're captain of culture at Work Pirates, and you're the author of Good Girl Deprogramming, Unleash the Rebel Within. You do a lot of coaching and workshops on deprogramming us women with our good girl syndrome. And I think it's something that so many women can resonate with. It's something that's been instilled in us since we're little girls to be good. So tell us a little bit more about the work you do, this incredible book you wrote, and this incredible work and important work that you do.
So where do I start? I To cut a very long story short, because I know we don't have a lot of time today, but thank you first of all for bringing me on. That's very kind of you to find me. Effectively, I found out when I was close to 40 that I had ADHD,
Mm.
and I'd literally spent my entire life as a complete and utter people pleaser. I would put everybody else before myself, desperate for people to like me, terrified of getting rejection and feedback, and completely deferential to authority. And also like quite cross with myself as well, because we were raised to be these independent women, but I couldn't ask for help. I couldn't admit that I was failing. It was like one disaster to the other. So once I had my ADHD diagnosis, and I was really cross, really actually quite angry about what my life would have looked like if I'd known how my brain worked.
Mm.
Um, so I took myself off for therapy and coaching for about a year to deal with the rage. And what happened was I got to a place where I could understand the me stuff, and I could understand the ADHD stuff, but there was still a big blob of all of this stuff that I didn't quite get, didn't understand, and it was frustrating. I'm a psychologist. Just like, but I don't know what this is. So I and the things that were in that was what I said before: the perfectionism, the fear of failure, the fear of success, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so what I was doing a coaching qualification at the same time, and in one of our Zoom sessions, the lady who was training us just said the words "good girl conditioning," and I was like, what is this? This sounds like it's a thing. So I went off to go and figure out what that was. And I was like, yes, this explains it all. It explains the over preparing and the people pleasing and all of the self-doubt and self-criticism. And so what I then did, I got really excited. I was at the same time as well, I was invited to do a women's empowerment talk at a conference. And I was like, I am going to do a talk on good girl conditioning because I found this new thing and it's really exciting. I need to share it with everybody. And somebody said, but how are we conditioned? I'm like, I have absolutely no idea. So the researcher and me went and tried to figure it out. And effectively what I found was a thing called the chart of coercion. And effectively in the 1950s in America, there was the Korean War, and so many American prisoners of war were defecting to China, and the US military were like very, very disturbed by this and wondered why this was happening, and asked this chap called Albert Biderman and his team to go and figure out if the Chinese had a magical mystery brainwashing machine. And they didn't. Clearly, they had all of these techniques of coercive control. And I was like, I wonder if this could be the thing. This is how we are trained into being good girls. And so what I did, I downloaded it and I got my pens out and I spent 30 minutes scribbling on it. And I went from excited that I might have found the thing to absolutely devastated because I'd found the thing.
Yeah.
And all of these techniques that society use to keep us behaving, to keep us playing small, to keep us in line and riddled with guilt and shame and self-doubt. And yeah, so do you want me to tell you a couple of those? Because there are 9, and I don't think we've got time to go through.
I think it's really important, Michelle, to go a little bit in depth into them. Yeah, because this is a really important conversation, I think, and it's really all about your purpose and your work, which is very important.
Yes. So there are 3 types. One's all about isolation, so keeping women separate. So the tailor's oldest time is it's all about um, having to have this female rivalry
Mm,
and that we are raised as independent women and we are told, we are fed this lie that we can have it all. And when we don't have it all, then we feel like we're failures. So that the thing that I did to counteract this, so the book was written to be read in groups of women coming together to tear it to bits, to be honest. What what we need to stop doing is believing in leaders and gurus that they have all the answers. So it's all about questioning yourself. And I'm not here to replace your good girl conditioning with Michelle's conditioning. So the book's definitely not this is a 10-step guide to, deprogramming your life. It's a series of provocations and questions. So you've got isolation and dependence as the first one. There's 3 in there. Then we've got the bit that really I struggled with the most. So it's all about exhaustion,
yeah,
and it's strategic exhaustions, all of the ways that women are kept tired. So it's the second shift when you come home from work and you've got all of the family stuff to do. We sleep less. We spend more time worrying about our appearance and what is sociably acceptable and trying to stay young and pretty and thin. And I found that chapter, there's one specific chapter in there about the strategic exhaustion that took me 6 months to write because I was literally deprogramming and coming to terms with all these things as I was writing the book. And then the last 3 tools are all about fear. So throughout history, all of our stories are about don't stick your head up, don't be a tall poppy, because see what happens to women who do. And there doesn't need to be any violence in this whole thing. It's the threat of violence, the threat of harm, the fear inducing, the anxiety inducing. And what's really painful about this whole thing is because we're conditioned this way, we condition ourselves. So for example, as a former recovering people pleaser, saying no to people still takes a lot of effort and energy, and you still feel the guilt and the vulnerability and the shame associated with that.
yeah.
So it's so heavy. The book is actually quite amusing, as well as heavy. There are bits that are really funny, but yeah, it's something that we need to figure out, that we need to stop trying to fix the women because it's society that's broken.
Yeah, and we hear many women across the world saying that now. It's not the women that are broken, it's the systems, and we need to fix the systems. And how do we fix systems? It's by every one of us being aware, first of all, and
Yeah.
changing the conditionings little by little within ourselves, within our families, within the next generation. So, our education system, how we educate our children, our boys and girls. And so, I think that's why it's so important important. And you know that you made a whole living out of it, Michelle. You wrote a book and you do the courses, and you do courses for individuals and companies on exactly this topic, because it's such a big, messy ball of all the sort of, messy bits in there. And it's very difficult because once you start pulling on one thing, there is such a barrage of other things that is attached to this, which is exactly what you've been showing us, because you've touched upon this and we barely scratched the surface. But each time you scratch the surface, there is such a long tail of issues
Mm.
related to that, right? So I think it's a really big topic, and it really deserves to be talked about more prominently. And thankfully, there are women around the world, such as yourself, who are really making a change here. I'm wondering, Michelle, what is your big vision? Where do you want to go with this? And what change would you like to see?
Oh, so I've got lots more books in me, first of all. So I want to target this at women in work and at and parents
Yeah.
and educators. So I am looking to collaborate with people to help this mission. And my big vision is to stop getting women blaming ourselves for and everybody else blaming us for all of the things that go wrong in the world, and to engage the men. It's not a man versus women thing.
No.
We're all harmed by patriarchy. We're all harmed by the rules, the silly rules that somehow humans have made up about ourselves. And it's yeah, it's getting everybody involved and changing systems. And my kind of big project at the moment is to look at how this applies in the work context,
Mhm.
because work, the modern concept of work, was designed by men for men when women weren't really in the workplace, and we've had to come into the workplace and adapt. And so it's no wonder we feel like we're imposters, because we literally are in a place that was not designed for us.
Absolutely.
So we don't need to lean in. We need organizations and systems and structures and other, allies within that to lean towards us and to help make it a fairer place for everybody.
Yeah. And I just saw this video by Kate Blanchett who said, "Why are you always asking me about the equality? Why am I the only one that needs to fix it? Why are women the only ones who need to fix this?" We need to have allies, and we need to have allies across the population of the world, right? We are all humans and we're more interconnected than we are separate. And so it's really a question that needs to be asked to men and women. And we all need to do something about it, but we can't be the only ones doing something
No,
about it.
no.
So, Michelle, what do you feel are your biggest challenges, and how do you plan to overcome them?
So yeah, my biggest challenge is talking to as many people as possible about this stuff. So it's it needs to get out, and it doesn't necessarily need to be me, but we just need to have these conversations. And what I've had some interesting feedback about, I'm giving people individual actions to do this work, and not tackling it at societal stuff. It was like, I'm one person in a small town, well, small city in the north of England. I don't have the power to change things societally, but if I can get lots of women doing small actions, that's literally how we change.
Yeah,
And and obviously there needs to be some top down people in power, and we need to get to them and talk to them about it, but we all need to be doing our part. So if I only focus on the big stuff, then everybody be like, learned helplessness. Well, I can't do anything about that. So we just need little ripples, little actions that spread is what we need.
yeah.
Yes, a rebellion, but a subtle one.
I always think, this is by far the most peaceful sort of revolution or evolution that is happening, and we are, everyone is silent about it. So I think that needs to change, first of all. And I
Mm.
think I love what you said, that each one of us, these little ripples, each person can make a change, and it starts with us, and then those ripples will go out into the world and create bigger change. And I love that you said that, because that's exactly how change happens, especially big change, and this is big change that needs to happen. Michelle,
Mm.
so what are you most proud of to date?
Well, I just love receiving the stories of people who are trying things and saying no and stopping people pleasing. And it just fills me. And I'm like, give me more of this information, because it shows that it's working. So it's the lives that this subject has touched, and the actions that have happened, and people caring less about what people think of them, because that's been literally one of my drivers in my entire life. It's like, what would people think? Who
Yeah.
cares?
And I think, and you say that very nicely in the book, it's not that we become sort of aggro women, right? It's
Mm-mm.
just learning to set your boundaries. What do I stand for? What do I not stand for?
Yeah.
Michelle, so what do you think the qualities you possess that really serve you? I mean, you're obviously someone who, loves to go in depth and research and get to the nitty-gritty of it, and make sense of it. What other qualities do you think you have that really serve you?
Yes. So listening to my inner 5-year-old that asks why a lot. So that's that one. It's like, but why does this happen? And I was blessed with a child that asked me that question so much that I got my mum really enjoyed that, because that's what I did to her. So I think it's that persistence. So there's there's a part of me that thinks that I didn't actually choose to write this book. This book chose to be written, because I fought it. Um, because it's not easy stuff. And so yeah, it's that despite all of those doubts and worry of what people will think, just get your voice out there,
Yeah,
because there are so many people. There's a funny song on TikTok about don't stop giving men microphones.
yeah,
We need a balance to those men who are spreading hate, fear, misogyny, racism, sexism, the whole thing. We need a counterbalance. We need women and allies to stand up and say, this is not acceptable. So there's probably a strong sense of fairness and justice in that as well,
yeah.
and wanting some more balance in the world.
Yeah. And everything you said again is a conversation in itself, and very, very important. And we have too many role models still in this world who perpetuate those systems. And I think that's why we launched She Can. Anyone who has a voice, come forward and tell your stories now, because that's what brings change. Michelle, so give us some top tips. What would your top tips be to deprogram our good girl syndrome?
So number one is always find your supportive people. Just find them and talk to them, and take off that mask of, everything's fine, I'm okay, and be vulnerable with them, and trust them to work on this stuff together. So that's number one. Obviously the part before that is become aware of this stuff. Sort
Yeah,
of become aware of it. You will see it everywhere. You read my book, I will ruin most movies for you, because you will see it. um and just stop apologizing for existing. I see so many women who literally apologize, whether it's in their tone, whether it's in, actual apologies for other people harming them or other people bumping into them. It's and don't stay where you're not valued.
yeah, very, very important. Michelle, so give us some, if you had a wand and you could change the one thing, what would that be?
I would I would put 50% of all parliaments and organizations in the world to be women. And I think that will have such a difference.
Yeah, I agree. Michelle, so give us an idea of your plans, your goals, the things that you are planning to do to further your incredible purpose, very important purpose, very powerful purpose.
So yes, my audio book of the book finally is coming out this month. So that's the immediate plans. And I'm looking to start a Substack talking about all of this stuff. And we've just applied for a grant to bring this stuff into organizations and really understand from a cultural and attitudinal perspective why organizations are still discriminating and harassing and bullying and making women feel like they're not good enough. So there's oh, unsurprisingly, more research is in my it's in my future.
Absolutely.
And book number 2 will be the good girl at work.
Yeah. Michelle, I'm so grateful for you to come and tell your story, for taking the time, for having such an important mission. You really are, together with Elise Lunan, who wrote On Our Best Behavior, and other women around the world who are really making a dent here. It's very important. You're very much needed. Your purpose is very much needed. So I'm so thankful for you coming to She Can today.
Thank you for having me.